Now, the other reason the United States is considering agreeing to all this, aside from the Straits of Hormuz, is something that's been talked about a lot in the news recently, and that is the incredible deficit the United States is facing in terms of its interceptors and its Tomahawk missiles, um, none of which are able to sustain a continued fight at the level at which it has been. Um, Roughly 65% of Patriot interceptors have been used. Um, there's a much lower stock of THAAD interceptors as well. And the United States can't allow these to reach zero because it has interests in Taiwan and it has interests in Ukraine and an interest in Western Europe that could be jeopardized by it going too far down. And that is where they are. This whole thing uh, puts the United States in a position where its deterrence globally, not just in the Persian Gulf, is now under question. And to be sure, the Pentagon and the government are trying to build more, but it'll take years to raise the amount, and that amount will probably not be sufficient for future needs either way. Interceptors aren't like fuel. You can't really surge it. You have to wait years until they come online, until production increases, and you don't know what needs you're going to have in the meantime that are going to deplete it. Like I said, Taiwan is a particularly big problem. There's a lot of reports that China is going to try to seize that country in 2027 or 2028, and there could be new wars. And the result of all this is that while for years an American base was like a symbol of deterrence and of power that made countries feel secure, now American bases are attracting fire. No one can defend these bases. Every place where they are means that your economy is going to be attacked and that you're going to have worse relations with Iran and possibly other neighbors. This is a real problem for the United States. And it's not just a short term problem that could lead to Trump having electoral issues or the Republicans losing the midterms. It could erode American deterrence and control throughout the entire globe. And that really brings us to the opposition that Trump is finding to this war from his own generals. Um, some of the YouTube videos and headlines talk about how Trump's generals have turned on him, how there's some kind of military rebellion because the top generals don't believe in this war. That's not true. There's no way the US military is going to turn on Trump to the point where they're not going to do what he says. But what they are doing is they're telling him that what he's doing is not working. They're telling him that the war is going nowhere. To be fair, General Caine and others said before this war that it wasn't going to achieve much. And he reportedly now said to several advisors that he's looking for an off ramp to this war, that what the United States really needs is to get out of this. Apparently, according to the reporting on this, he's not willing or scared to say this directly to Trump. So he's saying it to his advisors. And that gives you some idea of why this continues. People are afraid to come to Trump with things that contradict him. And there was similar phenomenon going on in the Vietnam War with President LBJ at the time. That's how these wars continue. Meanwhile, it's not just Caine. Admiral Brad Cooper, who commands the Central Command of the United States, which oversees the entire operation, recommended ending the bombing campaign around the Straits of Hormuz. He said that most of the targets have already been destroyed, and there's not much that can be destroyed now. You can't stop every drone being launched from anywhere. Those aren't targets that you can really reliably look at. And bombing isn't going to remove mines that are in the sea. And it can't get every missile that's far away from the Straits of Hormuz. There's just not much that you can do right now militarily to make this better. And the generals are saying this to him. To be sure, you could probably do a land invasion of Iran, and that would change the structure of the war and the calculus, but not necessarily for the better if the United States gets trapped there. Um, Trump still thinks that more pressure is going to get Iran to accept his terms, but that looks increasingly unlikely. Military power has reached the end of the road. And while the United States is trying to get out of one war, they're finally ending another. In 2003, the United States invaded Iraq. Now, on September 30th, 2026, the last American soldier is finally going to leave Iraq. Um, that's going to be the end of a very long occupation, which on some levels was successful and on other levels was not successful. We're seeing movement of equipment around Erbil, personal equipment, and men are being moved between Harir Air Base and Erbil International Airport, the American consulate compound. Non-essential staff and trainers and advisors are already gone. This is very significant for the United States, but it's important to note this isn't some kind of massive new defeat. The terms of American withdrawal were agreed to in 2024. So even though it looks like they're running right now under fire, which they kind of are, this isn't because of new developments. It's because the United States is keeping to old agreements. The only reason troops have stayed this long in the areas because they were asked to by the Kurds in order to continue to fight ISIS. The misfortune is that these troops have been attacked recently, and that makes it seem like the United States is running. So when you take this together with the reporting that other bases are considering being closed by the United States, it may seem like the United States is leaving the Middle East, but so far that's not the case. It still keeps substantial forces, bases, partnerships around the region, but it, the removal of troops from Iraq is yet another um, part of what seems to be an erosion of American power. Not yet a collapse, but a very strong erosion of American power. While all this is going on, there are other actors involved, the Arab states. And the Arab states are making brand new calculations based on all that's happening now. You see, this war started without anyone asking them. It was an Israeli and American initiative, and they've been fired at. And they've begun to realize that the United States is not giving them the protection that they need. It is bringing them danger, destruction, loss of income. So they're finally trying to get their own foreign policy together, something that has really been lacking between subservience of some of these countries to the United States, close alliance of some of these countries with Israel, um, alliance of some of the other countries with Russia, and with Iran. There's been a real split among Arab states, among Sunni Muslim states, and that has changed. There's a new coalition occurring um, involving some of the most powerful actors in the region. On the 7th of August in Mecca, the Turkish President Erdoğan, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif signed a joint defense agreement between the three countries. And it's a very strong one. It's reminiscent of NATO in its central tenet of an attack against one of the members is an attack against every single other member. It's bringing the countries together in a strong way in which that they haven't uh, been together. They also expand military cooperation in a significant way, and it's trying to create a military alliance that will reshape the region. The permanent institutions, in particular, when there's a secretariat based in Saudi Arabia, shows that they mean business. Now, there have been regional pacts before, like the Baghdad Pact in the 50s, for example, that haven't amounted to much. And sometimes they've been fleeting, like the Mutual Defense Agreement that led to the 1967 war against Israel. But this one has ambitions to be a sort of regional NATO. but it's not quite that yet. It has a long way to go before it can go there. NATO has 32 members, permanent structure, officers from different countries working together to create a military strategy. None of that exists yet. Makkah Alliance has three members and a plan. Its institutions are nascent. Could soon have a fourth member in Egypt. It doesn't speak for all of the Muslim world. It doesn't have Shiite countries. And it may look to expand to countries like Egypt, Indonesia, Algeria, and others to make it more of an established part of the Muslim world. But the more it expands, the more it falls into risk of being split between different interests. Right now, they all share a similar interest of not breaking from the United States, but showing some independence from it, not allying with Iran, but showing some rapprochement, so somewhere in between. Other countries will have a different vision and make it a lot more difficult for all of this to happen. But still, this combination could be significant. Saudi Arabia is rich and has its oil, of course. Turkey has the second largest military in NATO. Pakistan has, among other things, nuclear weapons. Together, that is massive. But can they unite these capabilities into something meaningful? That remains to be seen. Could there end up being a nuclear umbrella that Pakistan puts on these other members? There's no evidence about that. But once you have a mutual defense pact, that becomes a possibility. So there's a lot to look at here. They're not coming out against the United States. They're not coming out against Iran. They're creating a third movement, and there'll be battles between Iran and the United States over them. They'll try to push them in the direction of those countries. It remains to be seen if they can create a sort of Sunni alliance that toes its own independent military line. For such a long time, the Sunni countries have seemed to be not so much that they're not represented or don't have influence, but we're punching below their weight. While Iran, the United States, and Israel were dominating the entire region, this could end up being a massive change in that arena. So let's put this all together. Trump hasn't surrendered yet. He's considering making concessions that are pretty amazing from an American president in a war against a country so much weaker, especially giving up on the nuclear weapons clause, which was supposed to be the central one. But they're not surrendering yet. And as we've seen before, there are forces in America that will push him to continue to fight and continue to escalate. Iran hasn't won yet, thinks that it's in a very good position, and it is. But remember how much it suffered in this war. Its supreme leader was killed, infrastructure destroyed, economy under severe strain. We don't know how stable their regime will be in the long term. Even though there's reports that American generals have rebelled, the generals have not rebelled. They're just giving advice to end the war. America's not fleeing Iraq. It's completing an agreement that came to in 2024. Uh, and in other places, it's considering removing its presence, but it's not. But all of these trends are moving towards the erosion of American power. And that's why they're seeing this response from other countries in the region, this supposed Muslim NATO that's emerging as a counterweight to the eroding power of the United States and their inability to provide security. So the order in the region hasn't been overthrown yet, but it's changing in a very material way. How is this going to end, in your opinion? What do you think? Stick with WLA for more geopolitical analysis.